Hello, it's your boy, Lord Vortex, and basically, I just want to readdress some of the talks about before on this vlog, and it's just always an issue in popular culture anyway, and the current culture wars which continue to plague our species. Just all the discourse around, generally coming from America, this sort of discourse around whether it be the transgender ideology, which is a thing that doesn't really exist, or whether it be whatever. Basically, this hyper obsession with identity politics and blah blah blah, and then the intellectual dork web and all this sort of as a counter sort of thing, a counter movement to it. But anyway, I'll just crack on with my own thoughts. You sort of know what I'm talking about anyway. But I think one thing that definitely annoys me about the whole discourse around gender, sex, and gender expression and all this basically is that all of it basically puts men and women into boxes of behaviour, of how they express themselves, how men dress this way, women dress this way, men behave this way. Like the psychology of men is like this, psychology of women is like this. Now there is some validity, obviously, to behavioural science. There's some bit of validity to patterns of bonding. Whether in platonic or relationship terms, like not platonic, and there is some validity to scientifically being able to deduce patterns of behaviour amongst men and women, and obviously like cultural trends. Where I think both, basically, without just cut to the chase, I think both sides of this debate have got too entrenched in their respective beliefs, and I think actually when it comes to gender politics and certainly with trans issues, often the people who are trans who talk about trans issues are often misrepresented a lot actually. So I think that's a huge issue actually with anyone's critique of transgender issues, or basically transgender people just wanting equal rights and more safety in society and culture, which is a valid ask. I mean, it's like with any other minority in the past, like the civil rights movement, the black people in America, or African Americans in America. It's quite a reasonable ask for equality in the law, basically, if you're a true patriot, if you truly believe in the American system, in the American way, then all men, in the broader sense of that word, like all humanity, were created equal. All men were created equal. So now you can make a joke about that, obviously, say all men, blah blah blah, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like basically, if you actually believe in the principles of the United States, then you're pro-trans rights and pro-trans representation, blah, 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 all that, and LGBT and everything else, lesbian, gay, everything. Because all people are created equal in the eyes of, not that I believe this guy exists, this beard guy with a beard upstairs, but God, if you don't believe in that, then you actually don't really believe in American values, I'd argue. And I know there's a lot of American values, and, you could argue on some of them are not necessarily, but anyway. I digress. Basically, I think just basically there's a lot of misrepresentation on both sides of the aisle as to what each... I think that's probably more prevalent, though, to be fair, on the sort of right-leaning side. I think there is more misrepresentation there. Obviously, when I say that, I'm quite biased because I'm sort of lefty, progressive-leaning, but I'm just thinking of someone like... there's that Matt Walsh film recently which came out, which What is a Woman? Which I've not seen, to be fair, so I can't actually prejudge it. But it seems like he's sort of taking the most extreme examples of people who identify as trans. Like I saw some interview he's doing where it was like a trans woman who said she was also a wolf, identified as a wolf. Now, that is just that's being very selective with who they interview, I guess. Basically, I don't think it's exactly fair to take one extreme example of somebody who happens to be trans, but also claims to be a wolf, which is obviously false. I mean, if that makes her happy, then knock yourself out, love, I say. But at the same time, obviously she's not a wolf. She'll never be a wolf. But then this stupid, ridiculous. There's no comparing those two things, right? So, let me make a concession actually. So basically, in the category of woman as a concept, as a biological fact, as a cultural reality for the women live every day. There is basically, anyway, in the more modern world that we live in, there is basically two categories anyway. They're even prefixed in language: trans and cis, which is of course it's obvious to anybody who knows anything about this. But there is categorization still within. Because, obviously, unless some significant technology gets developed, a trans woman can never have a womb. It's a fact. That is a stone cold fact. But, I mean, essentially, I think it just comes down to... It's like I sort of feel like conservatives who are constantly moaning about, oh, trans people exist and we have to now recognise it. It's like, I think, the actual threat is massively overblown. There isn't really any threat, actually. Trans people are more at risk of being attacked, sexually assaulted, all sorts of horrible shit, right? That's a fact. There's a high incidence of sexual assault and basically assault in general against trans people because of transphobia and blah, blah, blah. Also sexual assault as well, because often the men who perpetrate those crimes are ashamed to admit that they are attracted to trans women, or they ever beat them up or whatever. It's a horrible thing, but it happens, and it does happen. Where am I going with this? But basically, where was I? So basically, I think it just gets taken that it is overblown. There is no threat from trans women who. I mean, yes, you may have very rare, isolated cases of people who are trans doing crimes, but guess what? Though transgender people may be a minority, they're still got the same, going to have the same variety of behavioural disorder as straight people, gay people, whatever. Of course. I mean, the problem always comes, which partially comes from IDPol, I'm not going to lie, and I'm not even an IDPol person, I really think it's a reductive way of looking at the world. But the problem with IDPol is that basically it attributes attributes to groups of millions of people. So like gay people, I mean, gay people are everything under the sun. Obviously their rights, because they're gay, have to be protected. Like, having gay marriage, being saved from crime because they're gay and blah, blah, blah. But you can't attribute entire... This is the thing. It is called cannibalizing in itself, because attributing values to an entire group of incredibly diverse people, which is what LGBT people are, and straight people, any group, any huge group of massive people is going to have diversity in behaviour, in appearance, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I mean, it's just obvious in a way. But obviously where IDPol goes wrong, now I'm not taking a right-wing position here, I'm just saying this is a pretty obvious fact, is that I think if you attribute a ton of, this is something the left needs to sort of just realise, and I think most fairly intelligent leftists do, but basically the right can use it against you if because they use it in an interesting way, so they basically take these extreme outliers of people who are on the extreme fringes of, say, like a trans person who thinks they're a wolf, or I don't know, a trans person who says they're trans Asian or whatever, which is offensive and retarded, really. Sorry, basically. But so, and then they take these most extreme examples and use it. Like, say, look at these freaks, and basically that's what they're saying. And they say, look at these freaks. What happens if we allow this? What will be next? Which is a stupid approach. Unfortunately, it will work for a lot of people because they'll just see it, find it amusing, and go, ha ha ha, these freaks. And then transphobia increases, and people have less and less understanding of the struggle that these people have been through to get to where they are. Like, I've only known a few trans people in my life. I've known, I guess, 3 or 4. 2 relatively well, never, or 2 not so much. But I mean, people forget that it must be a tough thing to live your life. Often, I guess most trans people will transition at least probably later teens, at very earliest. Not many people transition early, basically. And that can't be easy. Like, I can't identify with that. Like, I am cis. Like, I mean, I've thought about what it would be like to be in another body, but I'm quite comfortable in my body, and I'm obviously quite masculine presenting, obviously, because I feel comfortable in this skin, like, I feel comfortable with my hairy chest, my beard, everything else. Like, I feel comfortable in that. I couldn't imagine what it would be like not feeling comfortable in your own skin, and this must be hard, That must be bloody hard. And obviously, people who are trans have to go through a lot of ruminating and thinking, because it's a big thing to do. A critique that comes from the right often is basically that people are transitioning as a trend, la la la. Now, I don't know what to think about this. I think there probably is some evidence that it's more open, so it's more open in the open in terms of culture and being discussed on social media and all this other stuff. Does that then make, do you get like trans trenders, I think is the term that's used to describe people who sort of jump on a bandwagon? Well, let's just say for argument's sake that that's true, that there are people who are jumping on board a bandwagon saying I'm trans, and they may not actually be trans. Assuming that that's true, that they're jumping onto it because it's a trend, right? You'd definitely assume that they wouldn't go with them to the extreme of having surgery and hormones if they are only jumping on it because it's a trend, right? Because no one would do that if they had I'm assuming they have a rational-ish mind. But nobody would physically alter their body, I don't think, if they're just doing it as a trend. I mean, we've all been teenagers, and people used to go through emo phases when I was a kid. I was a teenager in those cringy days of the early 2000s. People were, looking at emos or whatever, seeing kids. And now I guess, I don't know really. You know what? I don't really spend enough time around 15-year-olds, which is probably a good thing. I'm 36. I did when I was a teacher, but that's a different matter. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is a bit of a ramble, obviously, but I just thought I'd roll with it, and it's actually gone into mostly trans issues. Actually, I'll try and take it back to the just gender in general. So, I mean, gender politics has got big part of why gender politics and general discussions around sex and gender have become so prevalent is mostly due to the internet. So maybe in a sense, it is a sort of, the conversations open up more because people can be anonymous online. So I can remember about 5 or 6 years ago, you get tons of these anonymous accounts, which is sort of like, I guess, what you call mugto accounts and that now. And they were basically all have the same style. They're all like a cartoon character and a guy talking in sort of deep voice, sometimes masked with effects and that. and he'd start going on about women are like this, women are like that, women are like this, women are like that. You can't trust women. Never ever can you trust women. Women only want one thing. They're hypergamous, blah 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 blah. Women want this, women want that. And it's a lot of it's just fucking reductive and cringy as hell, man. To be honest. The same with, like, I mean, obviously, like, to err on the side of complete centrist fairness. Some feminist extreme fringe stuff can be batshit as well. Like, everybody is, you're sexist just for thinking something, or every man's a rapist or whatever. That's obviously just horse shit, of course. Too, I think, to be fair. But I think generally because of the way the internet works and the algorithms work, I think in a lot of ways also the more controversial content is, the more it gets amplified in the algorithms. I think that actually has a big factor in the culture wars. Basically, anything that's a bit this video is probably going to get like 10 views. I'm not even joking. It's going to get like 10 views. Everything I put up, which we're trying, they're long form videos, usually 20 minutes long, where I'm talking about things like this. They are not going to insult your intelligence. I'm going to not try and do that. I'm going to try and assume that you have a level of knowledge. Now, if you look at the popular videos on YouTube, they're usually 10 minutes long. If they're like, sort of doing this pop thing, pop, like, I don't know, thinking, cultural stuff, they're like 10 minutes long. They're snappy. They can, but it's less communicative, actually. You get less depth. But that is unfortunately what the algorithm's after, and maybe we should talk to Google about that, right? Google, sort your algorithm out, I don't know. I mean, basically, obviously, it's based on a mixture of what's popular with human beings in general, and lowest common denominator nearly always guaranteed will work with human beings. So with advertising, like people say sex sells, and it's true. Like if you have an advert with a sexy woman or a man on it, you can guarantee that advert's going to be successful, just because we have depth to us as human beings, but we're basically superficial when it comes to that sort of thing. And if we see a desirable body, our attention will be drawn to that, and then it's like adverts. There's that advert. Loads of adverts. There's adverts you can, but if you like, there's a sexy person on the advert or whatever, and you might be more inclined to remember the advert. Anyway, I digress. So, where was I? So yeah, I mean, basically, it's just, I mean, anybody who's actually got a brain and a heart knows that men and women can't be easily put into boxes. Men and women aren't easy to sum up. Sure, there are patterns of behaviour. I do believe that there are certain patterns of behaviour that you could generalise about and say more likely to be this, more likely to be that. One of the funniest phenomenon, actually, in terms of like the manosphere, is the Sigma male phenomenon, which is almost like a meme in itself. And I think it's basically a bit ironic and taking the mickey out of itself, but basically it's that sort of lone wolf archetype, right? But then I'm not so sure, basically, that you can sum up the entirety of male psychology in these sort of archetypes. Well, they're archetypes, so they basically represent trends in culture, and probably archetypes in human beings, but like, I don't know. It's human beings, I think, are too fractal, like they're too complicated to easily sum up into these stereotypical patterns of behaviour, basically, for men or women, and it doesn't serve men or women at all for either of us to assume that we're this way or that way. Sure, we have different experiences, that is definitely true. But, it's like not all men are stoic robots who just want to go out and fight and fuck. That's just not a fact. That's not real. That's not. And there's been a lot of discussion around saying men have less testosterone now, and I don't really know about that, but I mean, really, as a man, you just got to deal with. we have different challenges. Like we generally have more testosterone, we have more aggression, propensity to anger. It's real, that's for sure. We're less probably open sometimes, but these are all things you can develop. It's all things you can develop in yourself. And likewise for women, I'm not going to make a bunch of assumptions about women because I value my life, but and the like-dislike ratio. I'm joking, but women have had to fight. We always lose. I'm going to do the feminist simping thing. No, I'm joking, but in reality, women have had to fight for just basic shit, man. Basic representation in parliaments. It was only 100-something years ago that the women got the right to vote, thanks to Pankhurst and all the suffragettes and a lot of protest, the women's rights movement and everything else. Obviously, the movement's changed a lot now. Some people would argue that feminism, third wave is now, or fourth, whatever it is now, is more preaching for not equality but superiority, which I don't know. I'm not really up to date with the feminist discourse that much. Why would I be? I'm a computer engineer, programmer. I'm not that interested in advanced gender studies, It's fair enough if someone should research such a thing and such a thing should exist. Obviously, anything's worthy of study, but I'm coming across as condescending, right? But it's very a humanities subject, right? I'm definitely being condescending now, but it's a fact. Come on, deal with it. But anyway, it's worthy of investigation, of course, but it's never going to be as important as bloody, physics or biology or medical science, right? But it's worthy of investigation. Shouldn't completely be scoffed at, and it's probably a more useful subject than Jesus, I don't know. I can't think of anything else to top of my head, and I'll just come off as more condescending. I'm really just messing anyway. If anyone's watching this getting pissed off with me dissing gender studies, obviously it's worth investigating these issues, but these differences in gender and sex and all that. God damn. I don't know, I've ranted, but not ranted, I've rambled for god damn 20 minutes, man. Man, woman, lady boy, man, lady. I don't know. What else could you even say? That's offensive, probably, but I don't care. I just say whatever comes to mind. Lady boy, lady. There you go. All bases covered. The triangle's complete. The circle is complete. The circle of life. Male, female, trans. It's all good. And then whatever else is in between all those things. The 5 million genders. The 33 genders. I'll close on that one, actually. So that is a bit stupid. The thing of there's 36 genders or whatever. That is a bit silly, I think, to be honest. I believe that there are different forms of gender expression for sure, but something like I can't even think of someone. But then again, this is. I don't want to fall into the trap of saying, oh, look, all these crazy trans people who believe in 500 genders. Most trans people don't. They just want to live their life being who they authentically are, which is admirable and is what everybody should do. But they get tired of this, oh, you believe that there's 500 genders or whatever. No, a few people on Tumblr believe that. A few eccentrics, maybe. And to be fair, they can believe whatever they want. It doesn't make it true, obviously. But yeah, whatever. Let them get on with it. If they really want to believe that they're blah, 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 sexual or whatever, then they're not harming anybody, to be fair. As long as they don't. They're not going to force anyone else to identify as they identify. And then this whole thing of... conservatives do have this whole paranoid fantasy, basically, that trans people are somehow trying to convert people, or that they're trying to basically force this, make everybody trans, or it's sort of like the gay panic, right? You have the whole moral panic of a gay people. Like, oh, if gay people are in the culture more, then everyone will turn gay. It's not how being gay works. I don't think anyway. I'm pretty sure it's not. It's not that you just watch. You see like someone do this, like ooh, oh, that's a bit stereotypical, I know. But it's not like you're gonna see like a gay person on television and you go, oh, I like cocks now. I love cocks. I love cocks because I saw a gay man on television. Therefore, I'm now gay. It's not how it works. It's not how human sexuality works. I don't know. And I mean, basically, like, I've not got kids yet, but if I ever did have kids and I saw two men kissing, or they saw two men kissing or two women kissing, I just go, yeah, some people find that's what they find attractive. I mean, and kids don't even know, like, adults always forget is that kids don't even really notice. They're not going to be bothered by things. The only time a kid ever gets bothered, right, by someone being gay or bi or trans or whatever is when their dad or mum goes, that's not right. That's where it starts. That is where it bloody starts. If their mum or dad goes, those two women kissing are queers, or like, two men or whatever, and they say some horrible shit, that is where it starts, man. That is where it starts. It starts with parents who are homophobic, basically. It's a bit like racism, it's a virus that gets passed. And so yeah, obviously we need more cool mums and dads who are like, yeah, some people fancy people who look like them, some people fancy people who look different to them, and some people fancy both, and anything's game. I'm sure you wouldn't say any holds a goal though to your kid, but basically just say like, that's not going to go, I don't know, sounds very good. But basically, yeah, I don't know. There's been a bit of a ramble. Very ramble. I've almost talked for half an hour now. Christ. Peace. Basically, I mean, obviously it's a bit rambly, but just fancied reeling off a bunch of thoughts about gender, culture, wars, sex, blah blah blah. Like and subscribe. This is just off the cuff stream of consciousness thing. I'm really not many people watch it, but have a good one.